My computer has declared that I am live. So I am live and having a sip of water. In the chat, Vitor says there is a unicorn. It might be an interesting lesson. We'll see. Imaginary creatures is the topic today. We'll get started in about 33 seconds once I verify that everything is working properly. I think everything is working. So there we go. Jiang Fang says, this is my first time in this class in Nova Scotia. Very cool that you're in Canada, Jiang Fang. Kaka-chen is here. Hello, Kaka-chen. And hi to Freddie and Vitor and Judith and Know That and Lolly Lolly and Freddie and all of the familiar faces in the chat. We'll start in 5 seconds. Getting off track here a little bit. 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about imaginary creatures. We might also say legendary creatures or mythical creatures. There are a lot of different names, but this should be an interesting lesson. These are creatures or animals, or in English, sometimes we use the word beings that don't actually exist. Although for some of them, you might argue that they do exist. Maybe you believe that some of these do exist. We'll see. But anyways, welcome to this English lesson about imaginary creatures. I think it will be a lot of fun. Hey, I got to turn the ringer off on my phone. It went bing while I was trying to start the lesson. So let's see here. Oh, it's still going bing. Let me mute this for a sec. Mute. Done. There we go. It's not Brent, but Brent and I were chatting this week about the state of Canada and America, but that's for a different topic. Well, hello to everybody in the chat. I see that there are lots of familiar faces. Hi to Hafiaz, Etienne, Judith, Durga, Katerina, Ismael, Kakachen, Know That, Lolly Lolly, Freddie Wolf, Il Shrink, Reza, Leo Rodriguez, Burgett is here, Christian, Unabi, Vitor, Jiang Feng, Judith, Kate, scrolling back, Nicole, some new faces, some familiar faces. So good to see all of you. Freddie Wolf says Harry Potter will be in this class. Well, some elements maybe will be in this class. We'll see. But I think this will be a fun lesson. Sometimes some of you want to know, where do I get my ideas from? Well, this idea came to me because there was an article about the Loch Ness Monster, sometimes called Nessie. And I thought, oh, I've never done a lesson on imaginary creatures. So anyways, we'll get started in a moment. If you have a question, there is a link in the description below. Nightbot will share that in the chat, and I should pin that for a moment. Let me see here. Should be in the chat somewhere. To ask a question. Here, let me pin that message in the chat. There we go. And I think we're almost ready to get started. If you have a question, please use the form. Please only ask questions about imaginary, fantastical, mythical, legendary creatures, beasts, or beings, or I'm losing track. I'm losing my train of thought, but we should get started. I hope you guys are ready. Let's do this lesson. A unicorn. So a unicorn, for lack of a better description, is a horse that has a horn. Similar to a rhinoceros. A rhinoceros has a horn, which is an actual animal. A unicorn is a horse, or a horse-like creature. Sometimes in English, we use the word like attached to a word. A horse-like creature that has a horn protruding from the center of their forehead. When something protrudes, it sticks out. And supposed to have some sort of magical abilities. I'm not 100% sure what those are, but I think unicorn tears can cure illnesses. But yes, a unicorn, basically a horse with a horn, or a horse-like creature. I mean, it looks a lot like a horse, but it could simply be a distant relative of a horse. Very common as a stuffed animal for children. So as I talk about these legendary, mythical, imaginary creatures, I will mention how some of them are still around in popular culture, but this would be common as a stuffed animal for children. A centaur. So kind of a strange looking creature. A centaur is a cross between a horse and a man. So the body of a centaur is the body of a horse, And then we're going to learn the word torso. So the torso is the part of the human being from basically the belly button upwards, or from your waist upwards. So it's the torso of a human with the body of a horse. And then I don't know if they're always archers. This centaur has a bow and arrow. I thought that was pretty cool because I like shooting bow and arrow as well. But this, I'm not sure if they're always archers, but you will meet these creatures in any kind of fantasy novel or movie, fantasy movie. And I should have introduced that these are all creatures you will read about or you'll see in a movie, and the genre is called fantasy, basically meaning a world that has been imagined by someone. This creature doesn't actually exist, but it's a centaur. A vampire. So these became popular just in the last 20, 25 years. I guess vampires have always been popular. A vampire is a creature that is only awake at night and sleeps during the day. And this is going to sound kind of strange, but they drink the blood of humans. Ugh, that's kind of gross. And they live for a very, very long time. And sunlight is not good for them. The sunlight will injure them or even kill them. So a vampire, kind of an interesting creature. The Twilight novels, the recent Twilight novels from about 15 years ago, maybe a little, I'm not sure the exact date, tell the story of vampires. But there's many, many different movies and TV shows about vampires. A creature that looks human, but is only awake at night and hunts humans and drinks their blood in order to live. They don't eat food or drink regular food. So again, kind of strange. A dragon. So this is probably one of the most popular mythical creatures, legendary creature, imaginary creature. A dragon is a giant, I guess we would probably say, I'm trying to think what you would say. It's a giant animal that sometimes can fly. It doesn't always have to have wings, but normally it does. In The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, the dragon likes gold. So the dragon Smaug sleeps on a pile of gold. And dragons, in some cases, can breathe fire. So we also met dragons if you watched the A Dance with Dragons, or if you watched A Song of Ice and Fire. If you watched, I'm trying to think of the actual name of the show. For some reason, with Jon Snow, maybe someone in the chat can remind me of the name. I did prep for this lesson, but now it's a game. It's Game of Thrones. That's the name. You will meet dragons that breathe fire, and it's very, very dangerous, but an effective animal to have on your side in any kind of battle. So a dragon, there you go. Cyclops. So a cyclops is a giant human-like creature. Again, I'm using the word like attached to a word. So similar to a human, but much bigger. And they only have one eye. So they have one eye in the middle of their forehead. Kind of an interesting and bizarre looking creature. It was kind of hard to find a picture of a cyclops that wasn't too scary. I didn't want this lesson to be filled with extremely scary pictures. But this is a cyclops, a giant animal. I'm not sure if they all have a horn. I don't think that's part of it, but with a single eye in the middle of their head. So yes, a cyclops. I would not want to meet a cyclops. They look very, very scary. And then the phoenix. So the phoenix is a bird, and the unique ability of the phoenix is to die, usually in a burst of flames or in fire, and then to be born again or to rise up from the ashes. So the phoenix is often used as a symbol for persistence, a symbol for someone who is very, very good at coming back from after falling down. So I'm trying to think of a better example, but again, a phoenix is a bird. It's a bird that at the end of its life or as it dies will burst into flames in some stories, and then will rise up from the ashes. Ashes are what are left over after a fire. So the phoenix will rise again from the ashes and be reborn. Very cool. Yeti or abominable snowman. It's hard to say abominable snowman. Now I have two versions of this. We have Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and we have Yeti or the abominable snowman. Yeti or the abominable snowman is a giant ape-like creature that lives somewhere around the Himalayan mountains or in the Himalayan mountains. And people have never actually seen one, but people have seen evidence, or they think they've seen one. So whether Yeti exists or whether the abominable snowman exists is up to you to decide. But definitely a giant, like definitely taller than a human type creature who lives in the Himalayan mountains. I don't know if anyone has climbed the Himalayan mountains, but maybe you've seen footprints in the snow and you thought maybe it was from Yeti or the abominable snowman. You want me to say that word again? Abominable. Abominable snowman. Tricky word to say. And then, of course, in North America, we have Bigfoot or Sasquatch, seen usually around the Rocky Mountains. Again, an imaginary creature, but maybe if you've gone hiking in the Rocky Mountains, you've seen evidence, really big footprints. And this is what Bigfoot would look like. We would say Bigfoot is a cousin of Yeti. And we also use the word Sasquatch to describe this creature. I think this photo has been debunked. When something's been debunked, it's been proven to be false. Sometimes people think they see something and they take a photo and they say it's a UFO or Bigfoot, but then later there's evidence that it's just a man in an ape suit. So, but this Bigfoot again would be a giant ape-like creature that roams, I think mostly the Rocky Mountains is where you would possibly run into it. A hydra. So a hydra is a creature, I think a creature that lives in the ocean, but that has multiple heads. And I think the problem with a hydra is when someone battles a hydra, if they cut off one of the heads, it grows back. So a very difficult creature to kill. But we do use this word sometimes in English to describe, you could describe a company as, well, they're like a hydra. Like when one department closes down, another department opens. Like they're multi-headed. Sometimes we describe government like this, like the government's like a hydra, which has so many departments and so many heads that when you close one department, another department opens. But anyways, a hydra, an animal, a fictional animal, an imaginary animal that has multiple heads. Okay, let me have a sip of water. We'll answer some questions. I see lots of chat going on. Freddie Wolf says, Tintin has met the Yeti. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yep, for sure. I like someone, what did someone use here? Very alien-like to have one eye. Yeah, good use of the dash with like there. Very cool. Okay, let me get to the questions. There's not a lot. Oh, there are a lot. From Know That, hello, Bob. May I ask you what fantasy or fairy tale books did you read to your kids when they were little? And which were their favorite books or stories? Thanks, Bob. So we read a lot of Disney stories to them. So Disney, I don't know if you are familiar with Disney. I think Know That you would for sure be familiar with Disney. But they make a lot of movies and there's a lot of books. So Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, Sleeping Beauty, all of those types of stories we read to our children. Some of Aesop's fables we would read to our children as well. Not the old versions, which are really kind of gruesome, but some of the newer ones. But yeah, we definitely read a wide variety. And we always encouraged our kids to read books like The Hobbit or a book like that when they were old enough, when they were 12 or 13 or 14. Let's see. Judith, kind of off topic, but hi, Bob. Hope you are well. If you could choose what kind of imaginary creature, it's not off topic. What kind of imaginary creature would be on the flag of Canada and Hungary? Thanks. I hope you are not afraid of any. I'm not sure about the flag of Hungary. I'm trying to think, probably some sort of forest dwelling creature. That would be my guess. Something older and, Middle Europe type creature. For Canada, I don't know. I'm trying to think like a beaver with superpowers. That's what I would put on there to represent Canada. Something like that. Hafia says books by Brandon Sanderson are trendy fantasy novels now. Yeah, I think, is that The Way of Kings? I think I've read that. Is that Brandon Sanderson? I think it is. Hafiaz as well reminded me that it's Game of Thrones back here in the chat. And Hafiaz says, I prefer the X-Men from the X-Men Cyclops. Yes, with his gold thing, which protects him or prevents him from shooting very, very dangerous rays from his eyes. Okay, let me just take care of, I'm going to put someone in timeout in the chat for a second. There we go. Okay, next question. Ooh, from Ruslan. Hello, dear teacher Bob. How are you, sir? Aragorn versus Jon Snow. Who do you think would win? That's a tough one because Aragorn, I feel like even though he doesn't have magic powers in the Lord of the Rings, there's something magical about him, and he's a very good fighter. Jon Snow, of course, died, and then he wasn't dead after a couple episodes. That was kind of strange. So I don't know if he's immortal, but I'd have to go with Aragorn, I think. That would be my vote. I hope I don't annoy anyone in the chat, but that would be my choice. Of course, again, Aragorn from the Lord of the Rings and Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. If they had a battle, who would win? Hafiaz says, yes, The Way of Kings, Stormlight Archive series. Yes, I read most of them, I think. I kind of, oh yeah, spoilers for Jon Snow. Oh yeah, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones, I'm not sure what I'm talking about. From Lolly Lolly. Bonjour, Bob. Do you believe in ghosts? I do. I don't believe in ghosts, but growing up out in the country, there are a lot of strange noises at night. I think I've shared this story before. At 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I had to go to the barn as a kid to feed the cows. We fed the cows one last time at night. And so I had to walk from the house to the barn in the dark, as a 12, 13-year-old kid. And there's a lot of weird sounds. So I don't believe in ghosts, but if one day they proved that they exist, I'd be like, now I know now I understand what that sound was. Let's see here. From Sufane. We have a lot of fair creatures, or maybe fairy creatures, and monsters in our Arabian culture, especially the book of the Arabian Nights. Have you heard about that before? I have. Yes, I have heard of that book. From Tagagero. Hi, Teacher Bob. What do you think is more real? Two-legged dragons or four-legged ones? Have you ever seen Cyclops? If yes, where they have the second eye? I have not seen a Cyclops, but I guess people have two eyes. But maybe a Cyclops has two. That'd be kind of weird. Two-legged or four-legged dragons? I think, to me, most dragons, I think, would be four-legged. The ones that I imagine in my mind. But of course, none of them are actually real. So let's see here in the chat. No, that says still busy with the Reacher books. Oh, yes. You're going to be busy for a while, I think. And Hafiaz says, nice, as long as you keep on reading regardless. Yes, for sure. Reading is just good. Even if you're not doing it to learn a language, if you're just doing it for fun. Unsel says, hi, when you were a child and got together with your siblings and cousins, did you tell each other horror tales? Was there anything you were afraid of as a child? Thanks. It is very common, probably around the world, but it's very common for me when I was a kid, when we sat around a fire, someone might tell a ghost story. When you're sitting around a fire at night in the summer, you're in the dark and there's sounds and animals around you, and then someone might tell a scary story. We call them ghost stories. So that would be very, very common. Yes. Was there anything you were afraid of as a child? I just think strange sounds in the night. That would be something I would have been afraid of. When you live out in the country, there's a lot of strange sounds in the night. From Jaden, 15 years old. Hi, Jaden. Can you name a creature with a snake head, a horse body, and an elephant foot? I'm creating a character in my story. Thanks, Mr. Bob. I can't think of a name for that. No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, but I can't. But that sounds very interesting, Jaden. I wish you all the best as you create your story. And then from Nikki. Hello, Bob. I want to ask you, if you've read ancient myths, what's your favorite? And thank you, of course, for your creativity. I like any of the myths that involve Hercules. I'm a big fan of Hercules. Super strong half god, I think, Hercules. I would say that. My favorite is when I think as a child, I laughed when Hercules had to clean out the stables. The stables. Let me just search this up. In the 5th of his 12 labors, Hercules cleaned the Augean, I don't know how to say it, stables. Yes, that involved cleaning out manure. As a child, I found that hilarious because that was my job on Saturdays, was to clean out pens where we kept cows. So the fact that Hercules had to do the same task as me, I found very, very cool. Hey, let me get a sip here. Sorrow says, is Teacher Bob reading the questions from this chat or a different one? There is a form, Sorrow, and if you use the form, you can submit a question, and then I will put that question on the screen and I will answer it. If you're wondering what this table is, I'm doing my taxes. So that's what it looks like when Bob the Canadian, if you don't know what doing your taxes means, it means you have to kind of show to the government how much money you earned last year, and then they decide how much income tax you need to pay. Here we go. Those are questions. Those are not slides. Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster. So in Scotland, in the Highlands of Scotland, there is a lake, Loch Ness. Notice loch and lake sound very similar. There's a reason for that. And in Loch Ness, there is maybe a monster, and that monster is called the Loch Ness Monster. I think this is one of the only photos. I don't know if this photo is copyrighted. I hope I don't get in trouble for using it. But Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, is possibly an ancient aquatic creature that lives in Loch Ness. I don't know if this creature exists, but there have been sightings. So when you talk about Bigfoot or Yeti or Nessie, when you say there are sightings, it means people think they saw it. There's no photo, but there's been a sighting. So they think they've seen Nessie. So again, possibly an animal that's still alive from the dinosaur age, or some sort of mythical aquatic creature. Aquatic means it is in the water. Nessie. This is why I'm doing this lesson, by the way. There was an article about the Loch Ness Monster. Maybe another sighting. So reindeer exist. So I'll be clear, reindeer do exist. If you go to northern parts of the world, you will find reindeer, and they do look like that, but they don't fly. But we do have this story around Christmas about Santa Claus, and that he has flying reindeer that pull his sled through the air. So flying reindeer are imaginary. They do not exist. I have gone outside on Christmas Eve and I've never seen reindeer flying through the air, but the normal reindeer do exist. So if you go somewhere at Christmas, you might see reindeer if you're in Northern Europe or something like that. But the flying kind are totally imaginary. So Pegasus has a capital letter because this is an actual winged horse, and this is the name of the winged horse. Now, if you're playing a video game where you can create different animals, maybe they have a Pegasus, but a Pegasus is essentially a horse with wings. So if you look here, you can see a beautiful white horse, not a unicorn. There's no horn protruding from the forehead, but this horse-like creature or horse has wings, and so it can fly. That would be very cool. I imagine if the world was filled with animals like this, like Pegasus, travel would be a lot easier. I could just jump on my Pegasus and fly somewhere very quickly. That'd be very handy. That'd be a nice way to go to work, wouldn't it? Well, it'd be cold in the winter, but it certainly would be fast because you could fly straight there. You could go as the crow flies, we say in English. By the way, as the crow flies means to go from point A to point B in a straight line. So airplanes, they fly as the crow flies, like in a straight line. A mermaid. It took me a while to find a picture of a mermaid that was acceptable for this lesson. A mermaid is part female, human, and part fish. So in some stories, when you read about mermaids, they will be on the rocks on the shore as sailors are going by. Mermaids, again, are fictional creatures. They don't exist. But if they did exist, they would be partially fish. So their bottom is fish. Their torso is human. Remember the word torso from when we were talking about the centaur. So the torso of a human. So from the belly button up, the torso. And then the bottom part would be fish, rather large fish. So And by the way, a mermaid is a female, and a merman, a lesser known term, would refer to a male of that species or whatever you would call it. So mermaid. The Minotaur. So the Minotaur, I want to say it's like a human with the head of a bull or the head of a cow, but it's really part man, part bull. Like if you look at this picture, the Minotaur has hooves like a bull, and it has the head of a bull, but it has the body of a human. It's also very large. And if you know anything about the Minotaur, it's from a story where the Minotaur lives in a maze. I'm not going to give you all the details, but every year the local people have to, I think it's every year or every 7 years, they have to give or sacrifice people for the Minotaur. It's kind of a strange story, but I would not want to meet this creature ever. So part bull, part man, 100% scary. That's how I would describe the Minotaur. A werewolf. So when you watch stories that have vampires, often there will also be werewolves in the story, kind of a different sort of imaginary creature. A werewolf is a human-looking creature, but depending on the story, maybe when there's a full moon, it will turn into a large wolf or into just a normal wolf. So a werewolf is, I guess you could say, part human, part wolf, but they're only in one form at a time. So when you meet a werewolf, if they did exist, they might look like a normal human being. They might be a little hairier than a normal human being. If you watch a story where they have werewolves, sometimes in their human form, they look like a human, but a little hairier. And then either for some reason or because of a full moon, there's a lot of different reasons, they will transform from their human form into their werewolf form. So I'm using a few words there. I'm in human form right now. So that means that I look like a human. When there's a full moon, though, I transform, I change, and then I become a wolf. Did I just admit I was a werewolf? Sorry. These are imaginary creatures, not real. So again, we use the word form, human form or wolf form, and then they transform from one to the other depending on the situation. A griffin. A griffin has the head and wings of an eagle and the body of a lion. I think if you ever played a game like World of Warcraft, I think there are griffins that you can ride if you are in the human faction. So again, if you read fantasy novels or watch fantasy movies or play video games, you will sometimes see creatures like the griffin. So head, talons, the front paw talons, and wings of an eagle, that's not a word, eagle. And then the body of a mermaid, if I saw one. I don't know how friendly they are. I'm afraid of something with that big of a beak. That just looks a little bit scary to me. A fairy. So there are a couple of different spellings of this. I've used the more common spelling. But a fairy is a small creature that can fly, not very big at all, that people sometimes think they see flying around their garden. Sometimes fairies will have they'll light up or they'll glow a little bit, but it's obviously an imaginary creature. And I think most cultures have some form of word for fairy. Just a small, I think, because if you go out in the morning when it's dark and becoming light and you see mist and fog, and you might imagine that you see a small glowing creature flying around. So a fairy, very interesting creature. We have some on our farm. No, we don't. I was just going to say we have some on our farm, but we don't. Let me just check something. We might do questions right now because a couple little errors just popped up. Freddie says, there was a lost connection for 10 seconds. Okay, there we go. I wonder, Hafiz, if I spelt Griffin wrong. I spelt it like Peter Griffin. Where is that? No, okay, Griffin. Oh, there's a lot of different spellings of it. Yes, thanks. Okay, I was worried I made a mistake there for a sec. Hey, let's do members only chat. Let me get that on the screen for you guys. If you are not familiar with what this is, during the lesson, I do members only chat for about 10 minutes. If you have submitted a question with the form, I will try to answer that as well. But we'll just take a little pause here. I don't think I'm getting any more errors, but I'll work on questions from the chat and from members. From Unabi or Unabi. Hi, Mr. Bob. Justice is the most imaginary thing in the world. Do you agree with that? So in English, we have a phrase, things come in waves. And I think that justice is something where, I think things come in waves. There's times where the world seems quite just, where there is justice. And then there's times where there's a lot of conflict or war and things there's a lot of injustice. And so I would say justice is I wouldn't say it's imaginary. I would say it comes and goes. And we might be in an era right now where it feels like there's a lot of injustice, where there's a lot of injustice in the world. That would be my view on that. From Know That in the chat. To follow up on my question from the forum, Bob, what was it like for you when you were a child? What were your favorite books and stories? Thanks in advance. So my mom was a librarian, and my mom really encouraged us to read. All of my brothers and sisters read even today. So we went to the library every single week. Every Saturday morning we went to the library. At least that's my memory of it. And I read a wide variety of books. So I read all of the Narnia books from C.S. Lewis. I read The Hobbit. I read The Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to think. I did read I didn't read The Wheel of Time. I can't think of the other series. I read a few of one or two. I read a lot of David Eddings. I can't remember the titles of the books. So, but before that, I read a lot of Tintin and a lot of Asterix, like when I was really young. Those books were really fun as well. Hafiz, haha, the Peter Griffin name shout out was so random. Yes, I have to stop learning about popular media or culture. From John Wedge, hello, Learn English with Bob the Canadian. I'm a little late today. I hope you're sleeping well, John Wedge. I was helping my wife, Naomi, the Brazilian, change Melissa's diaper. Well, good for you. I'm glad to hear you're being a good dad. And with new parents, I always wish them a good night's sleep. That's usually what they need the most. And then John Wedge says, hey, folks, don't forget to give a thumbs up. Yes, thanks for that. Let's see, next question. Oh, this is a good one. From Sorrow. So what, the Y should be a T, little typo. What would you rather be, a werewolf or a vampire? Probably, well, that's a hard one. I'll tell you what I like about vampires. I like the fact that they live a really long time. I like the fact that I think you stay the age you are like if I was 25 and someone turned me into a vampire, I think I would be 25 for the rest of my life, which would be hundreds of years, I think. But the part where I have to drink blood, I don't like that part. Werewolf, I don't know. I'd be worried with werewolf because don't they turn into a werewolf and then basically they're an animal? So I guess vampire. That would be my final answer. Let's see here. From Minos, where I live, some people believe that honest politicians are mythological creatures. Yes, an honest politician is hard to find. No, that says, what are your plans for today and the weekend, Bob? Do you have anything on your to-do list that needs to be done before school starts? So it's March. In Canada, you have to file your taxes by April 30th. So I know it's only March 14th today, but if I don't finish closing out the books or doing the books for the farm and for YouTube and if I don't finish doing my taxes today and drop them off at the bookkeeper next week, I probably won't get them done. So this will be my little, I got a little table from Jen, a little folding table. I'm just going to work there for the rest of the day. Freddie Wolf says, Sebert is a big mythological dog who keeps doors like, in Harry Potter. How do you call this monster in English? The werewolf. So there is a multi-headed dog. I forget the name of it. Yeah, it's not a common mythical creature, so I'm not sure. There's also something called a hellhound. Maybe that's what you're referring to. Ismail, that's a good point, Bob. I never thought about it that way. I'm not sure what point I made, but I'm glad you think so. Yes, the Belgariad. I definitely read that when I was in university. It's up. It's time for a reread, I think. And there's a second series too, I think, from that. Lolly says, in France, we changed the time at the end of March. Okay. Yeah, I wish the whole world either didn't or, yeah, I don't know. I don't know which way to change the time permanently. Cerberus based from video games. Okay. John says, ha, Bob, our sleep hours have decreased significantly this week. Melissa is having cramps at the moment, but she is very calm for the most part. Glad to hear it's going well-ish for new parents. Could you explain the meaning of the phrase cut to the chase and give a few examples of its usage? A heartfelt thank you, Bob. So when you say cut to the chase, let's say Jen asks me about my day. And let's say she says, how did your meeting go with your boss? And I say, oh, well, the day started pretty good. I had coffee with a couple of teachers and I knew I had the meeting at 9 and I kind of and then Jen might say, just cut to the chase. What she means is your story's too long. Go to the important part right away. So it's it's not rude, but it's very pointed. Do you know what I mean? Like when you say cut to the chase, you're basically telling the other person that they're talking too much and just tell me the important part of your story. Second series, maybe the Malorian. Yeah, that sounds familiar actually. Let's see here. Did I miss? I think I did miss. Oh, no, that says, so when were you bitten, Bob? Or has it always been like this? Back to the werewolf conversation. Bob, if you turn into a werewolf, will you still teach English? That's my answer. From Know That, yep, it's the Cerberus. I think I'm saying that right. And they guard the gates to Hades. Got it. Abrege. Oh, thanks, Freddie Wolf. At least in Greek mythology. From Key Park. Hi, Bob. I'm sorry I'm late. Not because of time changing, but I had some trouble getting connected with the internet. We have great firewall here, so I need a ladder. My ladder doesn't work. I understand. I'm glad you found a way to climb the wall. Very, very nice to have you here, Key Park. Another question from Bridget. Maybe I will see Nessie when I'm going to Scotland in May, attending a language school. Well, maybe. You should at least go and see if you can, maybe there will be a sighting. Maybe you can go out on a boat and you can see the Loch Ness Monster. That would be very cool. From Ferris, I really love the novel of Oz and also the older movie. I wish to live in such as this world, or a world such as this. What is your favorite character in this wonderful novel? So not my favorite character, but the most amusing characters for me are the flying monkeys. And I think in the movie Wicked, they do a really good job of showing the monkeys transform and to have wings. I don't want to give any spoilers, but in the movie Wicked, you see how the flying monkeys were created. Very, very, very interesting. So that would be my favorite imaginary creature from the Wizard of Oz world, the world of Oz. Okay. Ow. Yes. Werewolves of London. Okay. I'm just randomly saying words here. Let me go and cut the cheese. Yeah, cut the cheese is something different. So cut the cheese, if you guys don't know, is an informal, somewhat vulgar way to refer to farting. So when air comes out of, when you burp, air comes out of your mouth. When you fart, it comes out the other end. And we sometimes use the phrase cut the cheese. Okay. Let me have a sip, turn off members only chat. Thank you for being members, all of you. You know that I very much appreciate that. You guys are awesome helping to support this channel. And I am looking forward to every live stream when I can do members only chat. It's one of my favorite parts of the live stream. Let me, yes, awesome. Okay, let's finish this off. Let me find my slides. A gnome. So a gnome is a very tiny human-like creature. Often, if you see them portrayed, they have funny hats. Excuse me, I'm going to cough for a minute here. There, that's better. I've had a tickle in my throat the whole time. This is actually the cover of a Dutch book about gnomes. And when I was growing up, my grandparents had this book in their house, and I just found it hilarious. But gnomes are little magical creatures that often live out in your garden. If you have a garden, you might have garden gnomes. There's tree gnomes and garden gnomes and all different kinds. They're maybe about this tall. And in popular culture, people will still buy little garden gnomes made out of like you can go to a excuse me, you can go to a garden shop and you can buy I'm going to pause for a sec. Sorry about that. I have been struggling with this sore throat for too long. It's gotten a lot better, but anyways, garden gnomes, small little creatures. And you can, some people have, they're called figurines where you go and buy one and you put it in your garden. I'll be back in 2 seconds. You guys can enjoy the view. I'm just going to go blow my nose. Hopefully I can finish this off. We'll see how it goes. What are we on? Gnomes. Yes. Gnomes. This was a fun book as a kid to read, though. A sea monster. Sometimes we say sea serpent. A large creature that lives in the ocean. Very, very scary. If you were on a ship a long time ago, you would probably be afraid of sea monsters or sea serpents. They would be they would be something that you would be afraid would wreck your ship. And then a really large sea monster would be called a kraken. A kraken might come up and try to sink your boat. This looks like a really large squid. I would be very afraid if I was a sailor hundreds of years ago that a kraken would come and attack my ship. And then, of course, a ghost. A ghost is... Sorry, I'm feeling really bad. Jen is bringing me tea with honey. She'll have it here in just a moment. So maybe I should just pause and wait for that. I've never had this before where I've lost my voice while doing a live stream. Actually, my voice has been great all week. But anyways, a ghost is, of course, someone who has died and then their spirit has come back. You can see how you can see through the ghost. Like a ghost is not a solid creature. And generally you will see a ghost, not that they exist, but you'll see them in a house that is maybe haunted. There might be people who have died and their ghost still lives in the house. A dwarf, a small human-like creature. You will see these in movies like The Lord of the Rings. Very, very strong, very powerful. And they usually like to live underground and they mine different ores. So this is a dwarf. And then, of course, we have an elf. This is Legolas. So an elf has pointed ears. More of, like, as much as the dwarf is strong, the elf has a lot of finesse or dexterity. We can just pause on the ghost. That's scary. An elf, though, lives a very, very long time. I'm going to rapid fire do the rest. Sorry, people. A troll. This is a troll doll. A troll is like a rock-like creature that is a little bit scary. And when you see them in movies, they're not as cute as this. An orc is a very ugly, large creature that, some of you probably like orcs, but it's an ugly, large creature featured in movies like The Lord of the Rings. An ogre. An ogre is like Shrek from the movie Shrek. Actually, true ogres, I think, eat people. It's a little weird and scary. A giant is, of course, an enormous human-like creature. Very, very tall. A genie lives in a lamp, and if you rub the lamp, the genie comes out and gives you 3 wishes. And then hopefully you choose wisely. Sometimes genies can be tricky. A leprechaun from Ireland. A leprechaun is a small creature, usually likes to play tricks on people and has a pot of gold somewhere. And then, of course, a zombie, a human that has died and for some reason is alive again and walking around. So very, very scary. Hey, I'm going to switch to questions and we're going to finish off the lesson. Leave them alone. There were gnomes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up there, people. I'm going to go rest my voice for another weekend. So it's frustrating. Anyways, thanks for watching. Maybe I should book a doctor's appointment and get this fixed. So bye. I'll see you all Tuesday with another lesson. This one will come out in a few days in a shorter version. So look for that, and do make sure you watch it to practice your hearing or your understanding of this. I'll try to edit out all the parts where I cough. Let's do